DC, and you're watching Barside Jive, and I have the honor of sitting next to Bun E. Carlos, famous drummer of Cheap Trick for many, many years.
30-something.
Yeah.
Great to be here, Daryl. Thanks for this.
Thank you, Bun. You're
Ice cold
awesome.
brewski.
It's your favorite. Heineken, right?
Heineken was always our favorite. After we opened for Fleetwood Mac, and Mick Fleetwood was drinking it in '75, our beer on the rider was always past Blue Ribbon until about 1980. Then it got hard to get a hold of, but we were known as the band that put PBR on the rider.
You've done a lot of interviews, Bud, and have you ever done one sitting at a bar?
Nope. Yes, I have.
He's a good dude, isn't he?
Daryl, I often do them. We would do them at bars in the afternoon at hotels, because there wouldn't be any place else with seats in it and stuff like that. And I did one on Japan TV once where it was a bar scene, and they had Muppets and stuff. It was some variety show, and I said, well, let's serve some drinks, and they were real drinks and stuff like that.
Oh,
and,
wow.
That was kind of interesting. So yeah, once in a while we do them in a bar.
The Muppets.
Well, the Japanese Muppets. I don't know if they were actual legal Muppets or not.
Only in Japan.
Could have been bootleg Muppets, back in those days.
How did you get involved in playing music in the first place?
Well, when I was a kid, my older brother and sister bought records, and my sister was kind of a folkie, and I remember hearing The Twist by Chubby Checker, and I was like, the hi-hats, I thought that was a real cool sound I heard on there. And when I was in grade school, I remember hearing my sister had Return to Sender by Elvis, and I really thought that shuffle was real cool and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So then the Beatles came out on Ed Sullivan, and then it was all over.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles!
Oh yeah!
I was like, yeah, Mom, I gotta have some drums. I gotta have some drums. And my birthday was in June of '64, and she went down to Ralph Nielsen's House of Music. Rick's dad had a music store on 7th Street, and a guy sold her a whole set of drums. So
wow,
that turned out cool.
So Mom supported you.
Ma did well, yeah. She encouraged me to play any musical instrument I wanted, and she could play anything but the drums, so she was real good.
Oh, awesome. Did she have any rules like you can play the drums all you want, but you've got to do it 3 miles from the house?
Yeah, she probably wished she would have had that rule, Because my little brother practiced too, and I'd be up in the kitchen and over the drums in the basement, I'd be like, man, how can people stand this stuff? This is brutal.
Yeah.
Hearing drummers practice is like as a special punishment for people. It's tough.
My son Cody, who's now 25, he is a drummer.
Cool.
And so I know all about having a drummer. Yeah, because that kit took up his bedroom.
Oh, yeah.
And oh God.
Well, when they're practicing, they're not as bad. It's the basic just learning curve. The first year is the torture. Just the mindless. No beat, no tempo, no sense.
What is it about drumming that guys are attracted to?
I wanted to drum. I like the sound of drums, and I thought they were cool. And my dad took the family. We went to the new high school on the east side of town. Had a band concert in '63, and I remember they had a thing in the show where they had 3 sets of drums set up, and 3 guys got up and did a thing with a band, and that struck me as being real cool.
Yeah.
And I think from that moment on, it was kind of in the back of my mind, but the Beatles kind of kicked it into gear. It's kind of like, we got to get a band going. Everybody suddenly had to get in a band.
Right.
And so, yeah, people were scrambling, stuff like that,
Right. A lot of guys I know that play bass, they always say that, there were so many guitarists around, they chose the bass or the drums because they would always have a band to play in because those were the, most needed.
Yeah, my first band was 2 guitars and a drummer.
Yeah.
And we did instrumentals. We did about a dozen instrumentals, and that was in junior high school. And then, we got a bass player that summer, kind of morphed into my high school band, which was called the Pagans. And we had a hit record in Rockford in 1967. We did a Beatle tune and a song by them, Van Morrison's band. And,
right.
and that was real cool. I went to #1 in Rockford, and they got played on
Wow.
WCFL in Chicago. They had a thing in the morning called the Boss Comparison, and they'd play the same song twice by 2 different artists, you know, and people would call in and vote, and ours beat the Beatles, you know, not because it was any good. Well, let's get this straight. Not because it was any good. It was because our singer had like a baby voice at that time. He was like 15, you know, and his voice was just changing. So
That's huge.
you know,
Yeah.
So that went good. But you know, we didn't have any way to sell records in Chicago. We didn't have a distributor. We were taking them to the record store, you know, selling them. And
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and we made enough money to buy a PA. You know, that was cool.
Okay, so what band influenced you most as a kid?
You know, the Beatles and the Stones and the Dave Clark Five were like the big three, kind of when I started really getting into it in 1964. You know, because the Beatles, how could they not be? You
Yeah.
know, and the Stones, they were cool, and I really liked their songs. And the Dave Clark Five, they had neat songs. They were doing pretty much mostly covers back then, but the drums were featured in all their songs. You know, they always had a big lick in every song.
Right.
And so it was good stuff to drum along with. And my folks had a jukebox in the basement, so I could go behind it with a screwdriver and turn this adjustment in the back, and it had one 18-inch speaker in it, and crank this thing all the way up, and you could play along with it. You know, so
Oh, wow.
it was cool way to practice, you know, and stuff.
Did you have any family members that actually played the drums?
You know, my sister was a folkie, and my older brother and sister bought records and stuff, and so it wasn't a surprise when I wanted to pick up a musical instrument. But when I was 21, my grandma told me, she goes, you know, you're not the first drummer in the family. And I was like, yeah, what do you mean? You know, and he was like, yeah, you know, great grandpa Russ drummed in the Civil War. I was like a 4th generation drummer, and I said, you know, Grandma, I said, how come no one ever told me this? You know, like, well, we didn't want to encourage you. You know, like Gene Krupa and all these guys, drummers got a bad reputation. You know, and we had a family business too, a roofing company in town. So everyone, it was always just assumed you'd go into the family business. You know,
Oh,
and
okay.
stuff. So
Right.
yeah. Drummers weren't the nicest guys, known as the nicest guys in those days. You know, they were the guys that always got in trouble.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That is awesome. Civil War.
yeah, great grandpa Russ drummed. You know, his kids played. The grandchildren, they played different instruments. You know, my mom played everything but drums. So, and of course, the first thing I asked my grandma after she explained it to me, I said, "Where's the drum?" And
Right.
well, it was in the family house in Dodgeville, Wisconsin, and the big fire in 1870 when the house burned down, all the stuff burned. And
Wouldn't that have been awesome to have that?
well, yeah, Civil War drum would be cool.
Oh, yeah. Your grandfather, too. I mean, that
I would have ruined it by now, but you know, they're real collectible these days.
Yeah.
The Civil War.
Becky, you got a fly swat? You got a fly
Some
swatter?
flies got our number here.
So I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
We may go back and forth, but why do you think that Cheap Trick became such a hit in Japan more so than in America at that time?
The Japanese came to see us in, well, they saw us with Queen in early '77. We did a couple gigs. And they came to see us open for Cheap Trick and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers open for the Runaways in the Detroit area in the fall of '77. And the Japanese press came to shoot the Runaways, and the CBS International lady, Lois Marino, came, and she was like, they really like you guys. You're 4 individual American characters, and they really think that's cool, and they like your records. And the Japanese press that were at the gig, a photographer and an interviewer or whatever, took a bunch of shots and went back to Japan, and things kind of clicked into gear over there. And the second album, which was not a big hit anywhere else in the world, was a hit in Japan. So they kind of latched onto the band, you know, 2 rock star guys and 2 weirdo guys or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was pretty cool in Japan.
Oh, yeah. Y'all were a big hit.
And Clock Strikes 10 studio version was a hit.
Sleeping on the cruise
studio version was a hit over there, so
Right.
kind of set it up for us. And the other big thing was no bands had really toured Japan a lot since 1975, because at Blackmore's Rainbow Show in Sapporo, a girl got crushed when the crowd rushed the stage. So they basically banned concerts in Japan, and the security at concerts in Japan was the federal police, because they don't have local police over there. So yeah, you know, the market was ripe for a band to go in there, a band like us, and
Right.
it had good songs and it looked good to the Japanese.
So did the popularity increase in America after the successes in Japan?
We were on a real slow ascent, you know. We were kind of concerned about being the there he is. You might not see him on there, but there's a winged beast flying around here.
We're being attacked
We're
by
gonna get him.
a fly. You know, you might be better at the fly swat than me, because since you're a drummer.
You know, I used to be able to hit flies with a drumstick. I used to be able to get them on a table or a cymbal.
Wow.
So, yeah, back in the day, you know.
Yeah, well, from what I saw last night, you could do it again.
Anyway, yeah, Japan was pretty wide open for us and ready for us.
You guys were referred to the American Beatles, I know, in Japan. Did that carry over to the United States?
No, not really. We were still an opening act in the States, and we were doing better. You know, the first record came out and didn't do much, except in the Chicago area. And the second record came out and got a lead review in Rolling Stone. And we opened for Kiss in 1977, and that really introduced us to a lot of America. And so things were looking up. And then Heaven Tonight, that was in the can when we went to Japan. It was just ready to come out. And the label was like, yeah, Surrender, that's going to be the big hit. You guys are going to be on your way, you know, and stuff like that. So that was the big, grand CBS master plan.
Right.
In Japan, you know, they're like, the label over there was splitting into two labels, CBS Sony, and it was going to be Epic Sony and Columbia Sony. They're going to go two different ways, and they decided a great idea would be every time an American band comes over on either of those labels, they do a live album. And the first album each label released on their new imprints would be Live at Budokan. So Dylan for Columbia and Cheap Trick for Epic, and that's how that whole idea came about. And then that's the album that got in the way of the big master plan in America.
Discouragements have you had to deal with over the span of your career thus far?
Oh, crepes. You know, if you start looking back on things that, you know, there's all sorts. I mean,
Single out
we
some
should
real
have
significant.
signed a better deal. You know, should have kept our eyes on this guy who maybe put something in his pocket or maybe didn't. You know, that kind of stuff. Should have taken 6 months off when things got kind of hectic in 1980, and the bass player suddenly wanted to do a solo record and this and that, and things just kind of got weird because we were burned out, you know. And there's all sorts of stuff, you know. If you start looking back on things, you know, what would you have done different? You know, it's like, well, let me make a list, you know. So yeah, really a bunch of that stuff.
So, any advice to aspiring musicians to how to avoid some of those?
If you're doing any business, you know, I'm gonna just hold this fly swatter while we talk.
There he is.
Got him.
Look at that!
If we're,
right here on Farside
did.
Jive, Bun E. Carlos took out a fly with the fly swatter.
You know, advice for an up-and-coming artist or musician or something would be, and I should have taken more of this advice myself, or the band maybe should have too. Take care of business. You know, before you sign a contract, don't let some guy go, yeah, you know, it's fine or it's okay. You know, get some money out of your pocket and pay a lawyer, a contract lawyer, to look at a contract or this and that. You know, and keep your eyes on the business, and make sure everything's pretty fair in a band, because a band's supposed to be a band. It's supposed to be 4 equal guys. So make sure that you know, all 4 of you have the same voice and wherever you need it, type of thing.
Right.
Just be a better band. If you're the Beatles or somebody, you can have a manager that like makes a mistake and gives away your merchandise forever or something, you know. But if you're the normal band, no, you can't do that. That's a lot of money, that kind of thing. So yeah, you got to keep your eyes on the pennies and dimes and stuff like that. And
Right.
we did that pretty good in Cheap Trick. We had a pretty decent business going there, but things could have been better. I mean, how much did we pay for insurance? That kind of stuff. I mean. In the aughts, 10 years ago, we had an accountant. He took the insurance guy into the back room and almost waterboarded the guy, and knocked our insurance down to about half what we were paying.
Wow.
There's stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, take care of business. So.
Did you ever look over at Robin or Tom and say to yourself, God, I wish I had their hair?
Nah, because they weren't tall like me or Rick.
Yeah.
They look like midgets on the Budokan album cover.
Yeah.
To quote them. No, yeah, they were the good-looking guys in the band, and me and Rick had long hair. I had hair longer than yours when Cheap Trick started, and then age took a hold, and my hairline started moving back, and
Right.
Rick got a haircut and I got a haircut, and we looked better, I guess, because we went and did it. There was no master plan there or anything, but.
Gotcha. November, I understand, is National Drum Month. I was curious what you have planned for the month of November.
I used to go out to the Guitar Center and judge the talent contest, but I haven't heard from them lately. So November National Drum Month, I will spend the month buying and selling drums, probably like I do the other 11 months of the
Is
year.
that right?
Yeah. I collect vintage drums, and I buy and swap stuff with people, and I practice every day, so that'll be part of my drum month.
Right, right. Yeah, you have Drum Month every month.
Missed him. There he goes. Yeah, it is drum month every month here in Rockford, so yeah, we have a good time. There were guys here last night, I got like 50 drum sets and a couple hundred snare drums. There was a guy here last night, he has 100 drum sets and a couple hundred at least snare drums and stuff like that.
Wow.
So yeah, drummer world, it's a collector's paradise.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell you congratulations on your induction in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. How does that feel?
Of course, you never think that's going to happen and stuff like that because it never happened. And then we found out we were nominated, and I remember last December that week it got announced. I told my wife, I said, yeah, Thursday's the big announcement. I said, not that we got to worry about anything, I said, but, I said, I'm sure the phone will be ringing or something will happen or someone will have something to say. And, I got up that morning and walked in the kitchen, and my wife goes, look at the front page of the paper, and I was like, then the phone started ringing.
Oh, wow.
And I started getting emails, and I'm on Facebook, and suddenly I had about 100 messages, and
Congratulating you.
yeah, it got real hectic for a few months there.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and it's real neat. I mean,
Oh.
really, our fans were freaking out and stuff, and people in Rockford had been doing petitions, and they got 10,000 signatures on something that year, and they'd taken it out to Cleveland and plopped it on someone's desk and gone,
wow.
what the hell's wrong with you guys, and stuff like that. So the fans were going nuts. They thought it was the greatest thing since, baked beans or whatever. And it was real cool. It was a lot of fun.
Did you happen to hear from any of the other band members?
You kidding?
No. Okay.
I heard immediately Rick went in the paper and went, yeah, we're going to try and get Dax up there to drum. And I was just like, yeah, here we go, just like Kiss, everyone's going to start pissing and moaning about who's in the Hall of Fame or who's going to play or who's going to do what. And then the Hall of Fame pretty much let us know right away. They said 4 guys are getting inducted, 4 guys are playing on stage. We went through this crap with Kiss last year, and we finally told them, forget it, you're not playing, you're too much of a headache, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And we kind of got that sorted out pretty quick. And no, I didn't hear from the guys really. There was some sniping in the press. I responded to Rick's stuff in Rolling Stone. Rick went in Rolling Stone, and said, the record company wanted to sign the band when we had 2 drummers, because I'd broken my arm, and for 3 weeks we had 2 drummers. And no, they didn't want to sign the band with 2 drummers. And if you notice, there's not 2 drummers on the first record or anything like that. But so I went in Rolling Stone, and I cracked wise on a couple things, and then the singer called up the office and said he wanted to kill me, and I insulted his daughter, and it got kind of turned into a soap opera and stuff. And then the actual Hall of Fame, we didn't rehearse, we just sound checked for it and stuff like that. But we didn't need to rehearse. You know, not like we didn't know those songs.
Right.
So yeah, the thing was kind of a soap opera.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, let me tell you, it was sweet to hear you guys play together again. I actually went to a Cheap Trick concert in Dallas several months ago. They played at the Bomb Factory, and Dax was on drums, and they sounded good, and I really enjoyed the show.
Cool.
But when you guys played together again at the Hall of Fame, I mean, it's just the synergy between you guys. It's awesome.
Well, it sounds like more like Cheap Trick because it's the 4 original guys or whatever. I mean. Tom wasn't in the band for 6 or 7 years, and when he came back, I remember at some warehouse we set up the gear to just run some stuff down, and we did Big Eyes or something, and it was just like, oh yeah, this feels twice as good as having the last guy on bass, and he was a good bass player, the last guy, John, and stuff like that, and it's like, I hear the Stones without Bill Wyman, and it's like, the cool bass is missing, something like that, so. Yeah, the Hall of Fame, that was a lot of fun. Sound check, we did Want You to Want Me, and then Surrender, and then Dream Police, and then Shame at, camera rehearsals the afternoon, and sound check, when I was like, I was up there and I'm thinking, this feels real good, it's great to be on stage rocking it out with Tom and all that. And then the singer starts speeding up, or this happens, or no one knows what the ending is, or something goofy happens, and it's just like, I forgot about all this crap, too, kind of thing. It's like, it's a nice place to visit, but I'm sure glad I don't live there.
Bittersweet.
It was fun.
Yeah, I just was really impressed at the fact that you guys all stood up there. There was no, visible friction. It was just like you guys, sucked it up, got up there, and received your award.
Greetings from Bunezuela. Anybody here from Rockford? All right, Rockford. The first time I heard Rick's name was in 4th grade. My older sister Jan was in 6th grade, and she came home from school. She's complaining about a new kid named Nielsen was throwing rocks at her. True. A year and a half later, the Beatles arrived. Soon Rick was gigging with the Grim Reapers. Tom was with the Boll Weevils, and I was with the Pagans. After high school, at junior college, I met a guy named Brian Beebe. He was in a duo with a guy named Robin. Brian and Robin were looking for a band to play some school rec nights. I had a band, so we played Cream, Who, and Beatles songs every Friday night that fall. It was good. 3 more years later, a few more bands later, the 4 guys from Cheap Trick were together. 42 years later, we made it here. It's pretty cool. Thanks, guys. Thank you. I have some thanks to give. I'd like to thank my wife, Ellen, and all the McCarty family. To my parents, Ed and Vi Carlson, thanks for the drum set, Mom. My brothers and sisters, Kurt, Jan, Mark, Ginny D, and Edwin, I'm sorry I plundered your record collections. Kurt, your copy of The Twist got me into the drums. Jan, you got me into Bob Dylan. That was really cool. Of course, thanks to all my Cheap Trick bandmates, Rick, Tom, Robin, John, Pete, Zeno, Sluggo, the drum choirs, Hank and Keith, all the keyboard players, and one bagpiper from Memphis. Thanks, you guys. From Epic Records, thanks to Jim Charney, who was the first label guy to dig us. From CBS International, thanks to Lois Marino, Japan wouldn't have been the same without you. All my drum techs, from Jim and Muzzy to Matt, you were all great. To my 3 managers, Ken Adamani, Larry Mazer, and Dave Fry, you guys managed to get me this far. Thank you very much. Special thanks to Tom Werman, Sir George, and all the producers of our records. We always had the best producers and the best engineers, bar none. There's two people I'd be hanging with if they were still here, Buddy Miller and John Candace. I still miss you guys too. Thanks. And big thanks to all the fans and supporters who bought our records, concert tickets, and t-shirts. Thanks, you guys. You did it.
You know, like when we were at sound check, you know, everything, hey, how you doing? What's going on? You know, and in the dressing room, of course, the singer had his own dressing room, but the three of us had a dressing room together, you know, and Tom's like, oh, check this out, something he got on the road and stuff like that, you know, and we have known each other for 50 years, you know, so it's like, yeah, what's going on, or how's it going, stuff like that, you know. But then, of course, I'm walking down the hall, you know, and someone comes up, you know, and they called you a motherfucker on Howard Stern yesterday morning, and
oh, God.
You know, someone else comes up, you know, and hey, you know, they call you an asshole, the new Rolling Stone, you know, and stuff like that, you know, and I'm just like, yeah, you know, it's kind of a cheap trick tradition, you know, if there's three guys in a room, the guy not there gets his ass nailed to the wall.
Yeah.
And that certainly hadn't changed,
Oh,
you know,
man.
stuff like that, but yeah, there you go.
So what experience do you look back on and go, man, now that was really cool?
I saw some movie. I don't know if it was last night or what. Yeah, it was Deadpool. Last night I flipped it on when I got home because there was nothing on, and there's some superhero on there, and he goes, "You got this whole life as a superhero, but there's only 5 moments that count, you know." And blah blah blah. And I was thinking, yeah, you know, that's kind of like anybody's career or whatever, you know. I'm like thinking, yeah, you know, we did a session with John Lennon. I do interviews on that every year still. You know, like 35 years later or whatever it is, I still do interviews about my 5 hours in the same room with John Lennon, you know, and drum for, we backed up Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Freddie Cannon and Del Shannon in 1973, and that still gets mentioned, probably because I've mentioned it in the press before too, you know. That was like a bucket list thing, drumming for Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley. And, you know, there's a few things like that. Budokan turned out to be like, you know, this huge thing in our career at the time. You know, it's like there's another gig in a you know, a judo arena in Japan. You know, but so yeah, those are the big ones. John Lennon and Budokan and Chuck and Bo. You know, or this and that. You know, stuff like that.
Right. Now I understand you've sat in with probably a number of bands, but one comes to mind is the Beach Boys.
Oh yeah, those are more recent ones. Yeah, a few years ago. Down by Peoria, I went and saw them at a fair down there, and they broke the fair record of like 140 years. Like 20,000 people showed up, and I know Jeffrey Foskett, the guitar player, and he was Mike Love's. He's Mike Love's guy, and he was with Brian for 15 years, and he was with the Beach Boys for 20 years. He said, "Come on down." And I got down there, and hey, let me introduce you to Mike. And you know, Mike Love's like, You still practice? You still play? I said, yeah, every day. You want to play tonight? I was like, sure. What are we doing? You know, help me, Rhonda. I was like, yeah. And he's like, we're on in about 20 minutes now. So I run out, and John Cowsell's the drummer. I'm like, which ending are you doing? You know, how do you play it? You know, stuff like that. And I got up and I ended up doing 5 songs with them that night, and that was like really cool because I saw the Beach Boys when I was 14 in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then a few months ago, they played Rockford, and I went down there again. It's like, hey, you want to get up and do something? So I did a few tunes with them then, too.
First from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Buddy Carlson.
That's like the coolest thing in the universe, to get up with someone when you were 14, you paid money to go see, and then they're asking you to get up and play. I mean, that's really cool. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else you played with like that? Do you remember?
All the guys from Aerosmith jumped up one night to do "Train Kept a Rolling," but Joey didn't want it because he didn't like my drum set, you know. So So I was up there and I was like, oh, this is cool, you know. And, you know, there's been a bunch of those kind of things. Dave Edmunds showed up at a bunch of gigs in England in '79 and sat in with a band. And Roy Wood, who was a big hero of ours from The Move and ELO, he got up a few times and did stuff with us. And then we got up and backed him up in 1995 and did some Move songs and Roy Wood's Wizard songs. And so, yeah, those are real special, like, musical moments. The guys I used to go buy their records, and then suddenly I'm on stage with them or something. You know, it's like the coolest thing in the world. You know?
Now, what did Joey not like about your drum kit?
It wasn't set up the way he liked it. Probably, Joey Kramer plays sticks like this, you know, and I play like normal drumsticks, and things like that. So it's just, you know, he didn't want to sit in.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So Wikipedia describes you as Cheap Trick's set lister and archivist. So you developed the set list for the shows?
Well, me and Rick used to write them back in the old days, pre-album days, pretty much. And then we started out as kind of like, we started doing arenas and stuff. You know, we got to have a set list. It's got to, you know, how do the other guys do it? So I was the big record collector, so I was like, well, you know, here's how the Stones do it. You know, they do this, and they do a rocker, then they do a couple of these, and they do a slow song. Then they introduce some new material, you know. Then they on the home stretch they go out with the hits. You know, we would talk about stuff like that, and then we write a set list, and you basically play it the same way for most of the gigs on that tour, 'cause for the light man and the sound man and the effects and all this kind of stuff. And someone knows when to go get the car ready if you're leaving, and I'm getting this fly swatter out. Got him. And so we're taking care of business here.
We are. But he can multitask, that's for certain.
And I used to write set lists, and then, you know, everyone would consult on it and stuff like that. But, you know, these days, you know, the band likes to change the set list up every night. I was never a big fan of that. You know, the light man wanted to kill you, and the sound man would be scrambling and stuff like that. But and we weren't the Grateful Dead. You know, we didn't have the deep set list someone like that has. You know, but
Right.
I was always the archivist. I used to go buy cassettes and bring them out, give them to the sound man, or have a cassette machine and set it at the board. And then that morphed into DAT tapes, and that morphed into CDs, you know, and drop boxes and stuff like that. But yeah, I got a few thousand shows sitting in the basement and stuff, and I was kind of the guy that remembered the lists and stuff. So yeah, that was kind of my little chore in that part of things.
Right.
I'd make the pre-show music tapes. That was the most fun.
Oh, yeah.
Making a mixtape, you know, and stuff. And I'd work on it in the off season and bring it out for the tour. And of course, the only guy that ever listened to it was the sound man, you know, because he's stuck out at the board.
Yeah.
But it was fun to do. There's songs on Greetings from Bunezuela that I used to play all the time, you know, for Cheap Trick fans, you know, my favorite tunes or something.
Right, right. Okay, so who would you still like to meet that you haven't, whether they're still here or gone?
You know, I always wanted to meet some of my heroes, like some of the Stones, but 1977 we opened for the Kinks for a few weeks, and they were big heroes of mine. And after that tour, I didn't buy a Kinks album for like 20 years, because they weren't always the nicest guys on the planet and stuff like that. And you know, they didn't like giving us sound checks, and Ray always wanted to kick back for us being on the tour and crap like that, you know. So you got to kind of watch out when you meet your heroes. So yeah, like one day at O'Hare Airport, here comes Charlie Watts, like walking with some guy, and he's walking like he's in a hurry. He's got his head down, and I'm like, I want to reach out and go, Charlie, you know, and say hello or validate my fandom. I love you. I've seen you. And you know, you start listing how many records you got and how many shows you've been to, because that's what fans do when they see you.
Right.
They validate their fandom. And,
Right.
I'm a fan
Right.
of the Rolling Stones. And I went, nah, he looks like he's in a hurry. And luckily, because he was on his way home because he had a big fire at his house that day or something, I read the next day in the paper. So, you know, it'd be fun to meet some of the Stones, because, of course, I'd love to sit down with them and have a few drinks and go, I got about 4,000 questions to ask you. You know, so yeah, that'd be fun. You know, I always want to sit in with these guys. Like, I'd like to sit in with the Stones. I'd love to drum some tunes for Dylan, you know. You know, when we opened for The Who and they had Kenny Jones, I'm sitting on some road case back there going, I should just go up and knock this guy off the drums and sit down because I can do better than that. I was getting kind of hot under the collar, and and I didn't do that obviously. But,
Right.
So yeah, the bucket list guys are the same guys that were 50 years ago. All my heroes, from when I was a kid. All the
Right.
guys whose records I bought.
So Charlie would probably be your number one.
Well, I met Ringo back in 2010, so he's no longer on the bucket list, you see. So he would be number one. Then Charlie. I met Dave Clark a few times in England.
Wow.
We have a mutual friend over there, and that was the coolest thing in the world, hanging with Dave.
Yeah.
And Ginger Baker, Keith Moon, and Mitch Mitchell. They're my next three big heroes. A few years later, as you start to get better, your heroes
Right.
are like that too. I met Mitch Mitchell in 1979 with Clem Burke, and Mitch bought me a beer.
Wow.
He gave me his phone number to give him a call because he was looking for some drums. And of course, I lost the phone number. And I found it 30 years later and immediately tried the number just in case. And of course, it was no good. Keith Moon, I met in 1970. It was a few months before he died. We were doing an interview in the same restaurant, and Keith and Pete were there doing an interview with Trouser Press, and we kind of stopped by on the way out to say hello, and Keith was kind of like, he was drinking like a fish, and he was completely out of it. So I really didn't get to meet him.
Yeah.
But I'd met Townsend when I was in 1968. I snuck in with a roadie when they were playing in Chicago and helped get his drums out of cases and stuff, and did a little interview with Pete Townsend when I was like 17,
Oh, cool.
And Ginger Baker, I've hung with him a few times, and
wow.
he's a fun guy if you don't ask about cream or something.
Yeah.
Then he wants to kill you.
Yeah.
But otherwise, he's a fun guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, the bucket list heroes, they're pretty cool guys to meet.
Oh, yeah.
If they don't kill you.
Yeah. Keith Moon, he was a mess.
He's a
man.
wild man,
Wasn't
but
he?
I got one of his drumsticks at home because he was bouncing them off the drums, and one come down and I grabbed it, and like 5 guys jumped on me and stuff. But because sitting out in the audience, when I was a kid.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, what is your favorite Cheap Trick song to play?
We used to get that question, often. Back when I was on the road with them, I'd always go, "Good night now," because it meant you were done, and Cheap Trick, it was a lot of work to do that stuff, It was just full out 100% balls to the wall for 80 or 90 minutes. So, so yeah, Good Night now is always like, wow, made it through this night, and that was fun for live gigs. But anything off the first, second, or third album was always a gas to play. I have set up gear at home and practiced along with those songs before tours and stuff like that. So. Yeah, they're all fun ones to play. Stuff you've done on the road or stuff, good recordings and stuff like that. When I'm home all the time now. When I'm home, I practice every day. I practice along. My first bit of drum practice is I got a drum set that's muted up with the drums and the cymbals are muted, and I put on a pair of headphones and I play a Beatle record. I throw on a Beatle album.
Oh, okay.
And it's 14, 15 songs. Takes about 35 minutes, and just play along with Ringo. And
that's how you practice.
That's how I start practice. And anything before Sgt. Pepper's real good because a lot of that stuff they did live, and it's got a good feel, and the arrangements are drummer friendly and stuff like that. And then I go to a live kit, another kit in the room that's not muted and all that, and just play alone and mess around with stuff.
Right. Your drum solo. Who the king? Who is the king?
We be the king.
Okay.
See, we're all the king. That kind of stuff. Who is the king of the whole wide world was if you listen to the lyrics in the end, these deep lyrics that go ooh-la moolah. That's the king. Was the almighty Buck probably. But no, Rick wrote that for a B-side, and we were doing the album with George and Jeff at Montserrat, the Beatles guys, and it was time to do it, and he's like, well, let's get some drums together. We did 24 tracks of drums, and
Wow.
playing brushes on a leather piano seat and playing drums and dinging on a bottle and doing all this stuff, and then getting the kitchen staff in to help sing it with us because they were all Montserrat natives and stuff like that, and they would sing like "We Be the King" and "Who Be the King" and stuff, so it sounded good with us guys from Chicago,
Oh, yeah.
and stuff. And then we had about 50 people do more overdubs in London for vocals.
Who the king of the whole wide world? We be the king of the whole wide world.
Rick gave me writing credit on it, and that was real nice of him. Thanks, Rick. And that was a cool song. But the drum solo, when we started off, we were called Cheap Trick. It was kind of our reaction to prog rock, like Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and stuff. In 1973, all these bands, they had laser lights and keyboard players that did this, and guys that wore capes, and sissies and goofballs up there. It just didn't look right. Didn't look like our idea of rock. So when it came time, Bunny, you should get a drum solo for the show. And I was like, well, I'm going to do the solo no one can follow. The solo that when you walk away, no one's going to forget this guy did a drum solo. And it's not going to really have time to clear a dance floor, because that's usually what a drum solo did, because it was 20 minutes long and it was out of time. So I got these drumsticks, and I would I'd get up behind the drums and do about a 30-second drum solo. And it was the solo no one would forget. Because it was like, cripes, did you see that guy? And stuff like that. So, yeah, my drum solo is kind of more like an anti-drum solo.
So, where do you find those?
These are ProMark sticks. Coincidentally, I endorse ProMark these days, but I didn't back in the old days. They're display sticks for music stores, I think. But boy, they're made out of maple. I'm pretty sure they're pretty heavy. You got to kind of hold them in the middle to really be able to play them. Yeah.
So
these have been used, there's a chip here and a chip here, and I ruined a lot of cymbals with these, and wrecked a lot of hardware and stuff like that, because it really does a number on your gear. You hit it with something like this.
Something heavy.
Yeah.
So is Huda King the only?
I wouldn't play these on Huda King. Huda King was just basically a drum pattern. I would play these at the end of Good Night Now. Like if you listen to it on Budokan, at the end of the song, there's a thing and you hear the guitar feeding back and the bass going. He's doing that, and I'm standing up with these going. But they don't sound real. They don't mic up real good because they're not real clanky. They're too heavy. Little drumsticks sound a lot better than these do.
Yeah.
But I use these for about 5 years, from about 75 to like late 79. When I got new drums, then I didn't want to use them because I didn't want to wreck the drums.
Right. But they're very cool.
Oh, the ultimate. And I have a pair at home that are 6 feet tall, about this big around. We got made for a couple stadium gigs, and for the encore, the roadies ran us set up this crappy. We would go to buy some like crummy drum set and throw it on stage for the last song for the encore, right in the middle of the stage, and we'd do Good Night Now, and I'd play on my regular kit, and then I would jump off, and they would walk me into these sticks because I would have to hold them like this, and they were this big around and as tall as and I could only pick them up like this, and you'd hit the kit about 3 times, and the kit would go pfft, and just fall apart.
Wow.
So I have a pair of those I used on 2 gigs, and that was just ridiculous. That was like, we didn't want to keep going to music stores and buying kits, and we didn't have that many stadium dates in 1978. So I did. That was the end of that kind of. It was just kind of like, we've taken this joke as far as it's going to go.
Yeah.
There's one other little drum solo I do. It's the start of Ain't That a Shame, and I talk about it in drum clinics because there's like 5 or 6 licks in a row with a little keeping time, and then do another lick, and one lick's there's a Keith Moon lick, and one's a Bev Bevan lick from Looking On album. Keith Moon licks from I Can See for Miles, one of his drum overdubs on the track. A couple of them are Ringo licks and stuff like that, because I remember when I was putting the intro together, I was like, I gotta have some cool licks here, and I was like, well, what are my timeless licks, that I really think are the coolest licks, and so that's kind of what I put in. So when I did my little mini drum solo on Ain't That a Shame, it was kind of like premeditated, all these little licks. They sound kind of off the cuff, but they're really not.
Yeah.
me sad. Goodbye, gotta say. My tears feel like rain. Ain't gotta say. I don't wanna break. You broke my heart. I went apart. Ain't gotta say. My tears feel like rain. Ain't gotta say. I don't wanna break. I'll let you
Did you guys ever play the Warehouse in New Orleans?
We played the Warehouse in like 79 or 80.
Did you?
It was hotter than heck in there.
Yeah.
Board tape sounded terrible too, as I remember. Yeah.
Well, you know, everybody always comments about how well the audio is inside the recordings.
room, yeah.
In the room, because of the, I guess, the wood and.
I've got a Who bootleg from down there, and it's a line tape, so you really can't tell what the room sounds like. But yeah, the crowd's going nuts, you know. And the Warehouse was legendary because ZZ Top had played there, and I think maybe some of the tracks are on one of the early records. I forget.
Fandango.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, ooh, we're going in the Warehouse. This is going to be cool. There was a place at the Agora in Cleveland had this reputation too. We're going to the Agora. This will be cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there once in a while you'd hit a room was like the reputation preceded it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when we were out with Kiss in 1977. We did Canada from coast to coast and came down the West Coast. And I remember sound check at the Cow Palace. I jumped off the riser and went down the other guys and I said, you know, we're on a stage here. The Beatles played here. We're on the same stage as the Beatles. You know, this is really cool. And a few years later, we played Meriwether Post Pavilion, and it was like Hendrix played this stage. Same, we did a couple in Chicago like that too. I was like, I'm on the same stage Hendrix was on.
Oh wow,
So
isn't that awesome?
That kind of made it worthwhile. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. This year in June, you released your first solo album, right?
Yeah. Greetings from Bunezuela.
Yeah.
My solo album. Yeah.
Yeah, Greetings from Venezuela. And I own a copy. I bought it
Oh,
on Amazon.
thank you, Daryl.
Got to download the electronic edition and then
Oh, read.
receive the CD in the mail, and love it.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely love it. Of course, you know, I loved what I heard live last night. It was you and the guys. It was
The band last night, they're on like 5 songs on the record.
Yeah. That's what they were telling me last night. I got to meet them all, and
home.
About the ship I'm in, I can't sing, I ain't pretty, and my legs are thin. But don't ask me what I think you'll do, I'll not get the answer that you wanted
about that album. What inspired you to create it?
You know, back in the 70s, you know, it was always, we had the hit records, and then, you know, people, gonna do a solo album or anything? And, you know, Tom ended up leaving the band in 1980 to do a record with his then wife. And people would ask us, and me and Rick were always like, yeah, you know, we should do a record. We get like Bon Scott and Roger Chapman and all these guys, all these guys, and do some real heavy rock songs that, like, Epic doesn't like Cheap Trick to do. You know, Epic never wanted us to get too heavy or too dark. You know, they like the pop side of things.
Yeah.
And it was always like, boy, it'd be cool to do this or do this. And of course, we never did it. And then when the Hall of Fame announced we were getting inducted, I got a call and I was like, yeah, Cheap Trick's going to piggyback a record with the Hall of Fame. And I was thinking, yeah, you know, bands used to piggyback their record with ours, you know, or whatever, when it came out. And now we're piggybacking with someone else. So I thought, well, I'll piggyback Cheap Trick's record with my own record. So I called the office and said, yeah, you know, maybe I'm going to do this record. I cut a couple tracks the previous year and went, this is too much work. Because a sound man had got a hold of me and said, you know, why don't you do your long lost solo album? I was like, yeah, I should do that. And I went and cut a couple tracks and went, yeah, this sucks. I don't want to do this. This is a bunch of work, you know, making a record. I forgot how much work it is. You know, you got to get musicians and studios and rehearsal time, and you got to have a clue what's going on, all sorts of stuff, you know. And I started it and stopped it. I spent like 6 hours in the studio and stopped it. And then I was like, yeah, I'll do this. So this was like January of this year. So I was like, yeah, you know, when do they need this? And, well, they need it in March. I was like, I better get moving here. You know, so I started this thing about 6 months or a year after I probably should have. And then so I got on the phone and started calling, you know, singers up and stuff. I figured for bands, I could use, I was in 2 bands in Rockford, my high school band and the Monday night band. My high school band got together a couple years ago to play our 45th reunion. And I was like, yeah, you know, we could do the 60 songs with the high school guys. And then I have a side band in Chicago we work and play once in a while and record called Candy Gold. And it's John Stewart from Wilco and Rick Rizzo from 11th Dream Day and Nick Tremulous, who was an island artist in the 90s. And Mark Greenberg, who runs Wilco Studio, plays keyboards. I was like, you know, I could always use these guys on a track or two. So suddenly, yeah, we need the album in 60 days. And I was like, I got to get some singers, you know, and I had a list of tunes. I've had a list of tunes for 40 years, you know, and had about 100 songs on it. So I was like, yeah, who do I like, you know, I went hit my record collection, you know, well, who do I really like here, you know, and so yeah, Robert Pollard, I got a hold of him, the guy that my voice is singer, because I'm a massive fan of theirs, and I said, you know, I got a GBV song when we toured together. You guys used to do this, you know. And yeah, let's do that, sure. And
Do something real. Sidewalks tracing, citizens racing.
I said, can you do a cover tune? And he said, yeah, send me some stuff. So I sent him about 15 tunes, and he picked another tune. And so I booked a weekend in Chicago, and I did that with Alejandro Escovedo. I had a song of his I wanted to do, and I said, can you do another song too? And he said, sure. I said, can you do a Stones tune? Yeah, tell me, it'd be great. And so I did that with a few guys, and then some others. I went in with a Monday night band, and we cut some tracks, and I sent those out to a couple different singers, and I did the same with Candy Gold in Chicago, and each guy from Candy Gold sang a song. And so yeah, I got it. It's like 8 singers for 13 songs.
Now, were all of the guys that played last night, have they all played on that album?
Kevin didn't.
Okay.
Kevin he sings Johnny Cash with us, and he just recently started playing guitar, so we didn't need him in the studio. He didn't come in, but yeah, Rick and Dan. Dan sings a Japanese bonus track, You Ain't Going Nowhere.
Oh, wow, okay.
A Dylan tune.
Yeah.
And because we needed a tune at the last minute for Japan. I was like, Japan's putting it out. They need a bonus track. They need it Thursday. So we cut it on a Monday, had it mixed on a Tuesday, had it mastered on a Wednesday, and got it to them by Thursday.
Wow.
Type of thing. So yeah, we kind of did the album like that. Do 2 songs this weekend. I did Candy Gold in there and cut 4 tracks. They'll sing 3 of them. I sent one down to the Hansons. They nailed that. We did a Paul Revere and the Raiders tune.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, it turned out real good. And then I didn't know how some of these were going to turn out, and especially the ones I sent tracks to singers. There were 4 or 5 I sent out to singers, and I was just like, geez, I forgot to ask them what key they wanted it in. I just cut the track and sent it. I was like, see how this goes. And then it was like, God, I hope I like this. You know, what if I don't like it? What am I going to do then? You know, am I going to call this guy up and go, thanks, you're not on the record? You know, and luckily they all came back, and I was just like, this shit sounds great. I love this. This is great. So yeah, I lucked out. You know, all these people chipped in and really did the whole billion yards for me and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so it started off as a solo record, but it turned out to be like a cooperative type of thing with everybody that's on it.
Right. Well, I guess it was a little bit of a challenge to decide what songs that you were going to put on the album, wasn't it?
Well, it was only a challenge because I had too many songs picked. Don't know if I got him, but I think he's traumatized.
I think he's crippled.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, there's 8 singers, there's 5 bass players, you know, there's a few guitar players, and there's 1 drummer. So it was a fun record to make because we only did 2 or 3 songs at a time. So we'd cut the tracks, and if the singer was there, we'd do the vocals, and we would finish the tracks, the couple tracks. So you didn't have some guitar player coming in week 3 and doing 14 songs in 2 days, and it all sounds like he did them all in one afternoon. We didn't have any of that kind of stuff going on.
Right.
You know.
And that had to be pretty cool to play with Kiss.
It was
How did
real
those
cool.
guys treat you?
Well, we had a roadie that worked for us in the mid-'70s, Jolly Roger, he's known as. He's in that Joan Jett movie, the big guy.
Oh, wow.
He's a legend in Chicago. He was our light man for a few years. And we had the first black T-shirts in America, like in 1975, and we had Cheap Trick printed on them in white, and people were just like digging the crap out of these things. But Jolly left us to do a Kiss tour. And he lasted about a month out there, and he got oil spotted one day. He missed the bus, and they left him in some town. But, so he came back, and he's like, the guys love your shirts, you know, they're freaking out. And we sent a couple to some other guy we knew, and suddenly, we opened for Lou Reed. That was it. And we gave him to his crew, and suddenly our shirts were like showing up in weird places, you know. And this was like a year before we even had a record deal. You know, the name and the logo started appearing and stuff. So now what was the question?
How did Kiss
Kiss.
treat you?
This led to Kiss. We went and did our first album in September '77 in New York, and we cut basics for 2 weeks, and then it was time to do vocals. Well, the singer hasn't sang in 2 weeks, so we'll book a gig at Max's, and Robin can, you know, sing his throat, get ready for vocal tracks.
Right.
So we went into Max's, and they're like, well, you want a couple other bands on the show with you? And we were like, no, we got enough original material. We'll do 3 sets of our own. And they were just like, whoa, baby. And they thought that was cool. And the guys from Kiss showed up, Paul and Gene. And Gene threw like a $20 bill on stage because Rick was walking the tables or something. Rick took it and stuck it on his forehead. And Rick acted like he ate it. And, of course, that freaked Gene out. After the show, he comes back and says, where's my money? Give me my money. You know, Gene. So we got along great, famously, Rick and Gene and Paul especially. So our first record comes out, you know, the next 6 months later, and we do this tour with the Kinks for about 1,000 people a night because they weren't doing much business. It was right before Sleepwalker took off. And we get back home, and the office calls, and they're like, yeah, this booking agency, now they want you to go out with Procol Harum. And we were like, Procol Harum? And they're like, yeah, 1 U.S. show and 3 Canada shows. That's your big album tour. And I was like, what? And Gene calls out of the blue and goes, your booking agency's no good. You should go, why don't you come out and open with us? Sign with our booking agency, and we'll show you the world. You guys are great. I think you guys are going to be huge. Stuff like that. So we left our booking agency and signed with Gene, the agency that booked Kiss, and they booked a coast-to-coast tour with us, and every night Gene would give us advice, whether we wanted it or not. You guys should do this. Don't do this. This looks cool. Why don't you get a better shirt? Blah, blah, blah. All sorts of stuff. And Gene did this for other bands, too. And
He got all that business sense.
Yeah.
The guy's a marketing genius.
well, there was nothing in it for Gene, really, on this thing. There was no back end for Gene. Gene wasn't going to make any money on us or anything like that. So he did this out of his musical goodness of his heart.
Wow, yeah.
You know, and stuff like that. And so, yeah, Kiss introduced us to America, basically west of the Mississippi and all of Canada. People still come up to me, you know, the first gig I saw you guys at with Kiss, you know, back in '76 or '7 or '8 or whatever it was. And,
Right.
You know, and
Right.
yeah, it was real good. It was an education for us.
Yeah.
You know, we learned how to go out there for 45 minutes with people out there giving us the finger and throwing shit at us and how to try and win them over
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I don't think we ever got an encore on the tour. But we knew that wasn't coming at the start of the tour, because Gene told us, he goes, you guys are going to get killed, you know.
Initially,
AC/DC
yeah.
was out with us last year, and they got killed. You ever hear of those guys? And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, we've heard of them, you know, and stuff. So, yeah, it was good. Gene did us good.
You have contact with him still?
Oh, we'd see him whenever we're in L.A., you know. Yeah, well, we had contact with him after we'd run. I remember we ran in with the record plant when we were mixing Budokan, and they're like, yeah, Peter didn't show up, so we got Anton Fig to come in and cut all the tracks for the Elder. You know, that last album, Peter's Face, is on the cover. But and Gene called us in '79. He goes, look, we got a gig booked at the Superdome in Pontiac, and the show's tanking. We need you guys to open for us on the show. Can you do us a favor? And we went, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And probably help sell, you know, another 20,000 tickets or something for him. And 10 years later, he called us and goes, I need a favor. I got a label, Simmons Records. I got this band. Can you take these guys out with you guys for a tour? And I was like, yeah, okay, sure, no problem. And 10 years later, Gene called us and goes, I'm doing this Howard Stern movie or this thing, and we want to use Surrender or something, Detroit Rock City. That was the project. We want to use Surrender. Can you give us a deal? Can you give us a rate or something like that? You know, so yeah, you know, Gene's a businessman. He never hesitated to call and ask for a return on the favor at a later date.
Right.
And we were always happy to oblige him too, because you know Gene was a good guy, and Paul's a nice guy. Peter was a swinging drummer, just killer drummer. Ace was a stitch, good guitar player, and he was just a crack up to hang out with these guys, you know, and stuff. And you know, Ace, hey, you want to go fishing? Yeah, man. And Peter, you know, like, I can't get any drugs up here. When I get some fucking drugs, I'm going home on these 2 days off. You know, and it was the '70s, you know, and we were all partying and stuff. So yeah,
Right.
But it was cool. You know,
I know that you're a full-time drummer and you practice every day and you still perform and you're always thinking music. But when you're like away, if there is a time when you're away from music, what do you do that you enjoy?
I go to a movie every week these days, because in the fall, of course, they put out movies for people my age, you know, mindless adventure movies and cool movies and stuff like that. And you know, I'm a fisherman.
Okay.
Of course, if I'm not playing drums, I'm a drum collector, so I'm looking at drums or buying and selling. You know, if I'm traveling, which I don't travel too much these days, but if I am, you know, and there's a sushi bar or some cool-looking restaurant, that was always big entertainment on the road from the '90s on. Was let's go find some good food, you know, stuff like that.
Right.
I love to go see bands. I saw Chris Robinson Brotherhood last week, and they were just gobsmackingly great, just killer, you know, and. So I go to maybe a half a dozen or a dozen shows a year of other bands and stuff like that. You know?
Now, I remember from the Hall of Fame, you had like 15 members of your family there. Was that right?
A bunch of the family came. My wife's the 10th of 10 kids, and I'm third of 6 kids. So we got nephews and nieces up to yazoo, and you know, bucket loads of relatives and stuff like that. And yeah, a bunch of them bought tickets and came and sat in the house and saw us and stuff like that.
Now, you have children?
Got no kids.
No kids?
No, but I
Just
got
you and the wife?
like 50 nieces and nephews, though. So
Wow.
They dig Uncle Bunny. You know.
Yeah, well,
Some
I'm
of
sure.
them do. Yeah.
I'm sure. They still come watch your shows?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I thought my brother-in-law might be here last night, but he didn't make it. He was here. I had a couple brother and sister-in-laws here last time, and a nephew and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. So, pretty good sized family then.
Oh yeah, big time.
Absolutely. What is your wife's name?
Ellen.
Ellen. Hey, Ellen.
It was cool to see Mayall when I saw him back in the early '90s. You know, I knew John Brandt was playing in the opening act. It was a guy. It was a guy that had played guitar with Muddy Waters, John Dewish, and they had a little blues trio. And I sat in with them, and on the break, I got introduced to John Mayall and all that. And then when we were on the side of the stage, I said, "Yeah, is Buddy going to sit in with John Mayall?" And a couple guys started laughing, and I said, well, "What's so funny about that?" And I was like, "Buddy doesn't sit in with white blues guys in his club."
Yeah.
Basically, is how it goes.
Yeah.
There's no rule printed anywhere, but if you're a white blues band playing at Buddy Guy's Legends, don't look for Buddy Guy to hop up with you.
Right.
He hops up with the real blues guys, not with you guys, you know, type
Yeah.
of thing. And
Yeah.
Mayall was good. He was real good.
Yeah,
I thought he was old then. You
Yeah.
know, and here it is 25
Oh, yeah.
years later, you know. The Beano album, that first Mayall album with Clapton that came out in America, that was mandatory in about late '67, early '68, and in Rockford here. Any guy in a band if he didn't have that record, he really wasn't up to snuff.
Really?
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
Huey had his little drum solo on What I Say and Stepping Out, you know, and all this cool stuff on there. And I remember meeting Huey Flint a couple years later with a blues band in Germany. The guy Paul Jones from Manfred Mann was singing. They had a little group called a blues band, and I was like, Huey, I was a total germ, you know. I was just like,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Oh yeah, really cool. Yeah, Mayo. I like that guy.
Yeah, classy.
We did Walking on Sunset and Vacation. We did some Mayo stuff and Cheap Trick, you know, before we put records out.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Did you guys ever meet Robert Plant or Jimmy Page?
Yeah, we opened for Robert Plant
John
in '88.
Bonham.
Never met Bonham. He was having a birthday party in '79 when we were in Birmingham, and I didn't go over to the house. I missed that one.
Yeah.
This female I was dating went over. She went over and went to the party, stuff like that, and he stuck his head in the room, so I kind of missed that one. Page, I've seen him go walking in the neighborhood, but never went up and went, you know, said hello or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Plant, yeah, he was kind of interesting, you know.
Yeah.
He came in the dressing room when Flame was #1 and goes, "If I would have known this was #1, I would have had you guys out here." And we all had he had a laugh at that, and we all had a laugh. And he came in. Then when "Don't Be Cruel" came out a few weeks later, he came in the dressing room again, and he gave us a little bit of a lecture about why did you guys don't have to put out a cover tune and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, when you quit Led Zeppelin, you put out a whole EP of cover tunes. But Robert, he's a cool guy. He really,
Yeah.
his band was really cool, you know. So
Yeah.
and opening for him, I mean, it doesn't get much cooler than that. So that was really cool.
So you did open for Page and Plant?
No, just for Plant in '88 when he on that the tour where he lectured us about selling out. And I said, "Yeah, you got a Coke commercial. How many millions did you get for that?" And I got the icy stare, you know, like, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, I saw your Target commercial.
Oh, my Target ad.
That was cool.
That's fun.
That was really cool.
Me and Tori from the Donnas, yeah.
Yeah.
Tori Castellano.
Yeah. Yeah, those kind of gigs pay pretty well, don't they?
That gig paid pretty good. I got the call and I was like, "You're going to get this much dough if they want you for this thing." And then I got a call a day later. And they want you, but they want 2 drummers, so now you're getting half that much dough.
Oh, man.
I was like, that's still a lot of dough.
Yeah.
And it took 2 days, and I got writing credit for that thing we played on there.
Oh, okay.
The Target theme or whatever we ended up calling it.
Yeah, that was cool, man.
You know, yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Get the best gifts at the Target 2-day sale. Friday and Saturday only.
Let's go!
Doors open Friday at 6 a.m.
People call you Bun. Some people call you Bun E. I know your given name is Brad.
Yeah, I was born Brad Carlson. Yeah.
So do you prefer Bun or Bun E?
Well, you know, the basic short story is when I was 4 or 5, someone gave me a Paul Bunyan book, and I got into that. So at home I was known as Bunyan for years.
Okay.
And then in high school, of course, these things start morphing, you know, and people would call me Bun or Bunezuela or Bunifer and stuff like that. And then when the band before Cheap Trick, Sick Man of Europe, was me, Rick, and Tom, and Stookie from the Naz. Tom started calling me Bunny. And I was like, then for Cheap Trick, I was like, hey, we got a Nielsen in the band, and we got a Peterson in the band. If we have a Carlson in the band, it's going to sound like the band of Swedes from Rockford, you know. And we didn't want to be known as a Rockford band or a band that sounded like a bunch of Swede guys. So I said I'll change my last name to Carlos, you know. And I'll just be Bunny Carlos. I'll have a stage name like Ringo or someone, you know. And so yeah, people, you know, what do I call you, Bun or Bun E or Bunny? Or in Japan, they would call me Bun because they didn't know the concept.
How to pronounce it.
They didn't know the concept of a middle initial. They thought my name was Bun.
Oh.
So you can hear if you put on cans in Budokan, you can probably hear between songs, you know, Bun and stuff. So some people call me Bun. You know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what do you prefer?
Anything they want, basically. You know.
Does anyone still call you Brad, though?
My parents never even call me Brad. So
Really?
if someone calls me Brad, it's someone that probably knew me from grade school.
Okay.
So when people come up and call me Brad, I go, well, you don't really know me, do you? You know, or you wouldn't call me that. So it's no big deal. The Czechs all say Bunny. So that was the big crucial thing.
Bands, you guys have a ton of photographs out there that are just cool. Weird poses, crazy poses, doing different things. Was that your personality, or was someone directing you to pose that way?
Well, a lot of times someone was trying to get you to do something. We were called Cheap Trick. The two rock guys, the two don't look like rock guys, so people were always, what should we do here? What angle should, everyone had to have an angle or a premise or something. So, some guy in Europe wrapped us all in tinfoil. We didn't like that.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, good. People are always, do this, make this kind of face. Annie Leibovitz for the cover of Rolling Stone, she's like, jump up and down. You ready? On 4, everybody jump. And we were kind of like, she can't come up with,
really?
She can't think of something better than that, And of course, that's what's on the cover, us jumping, So,
yeah, it was a cool shot.
And when we went to do the In Color album photo, the cover photo, the guy starts shooting, and we go, when's the color photo? And he goes, what do you mean? And we said, well, the name of the record's In Color. Oh, yeah, that's right, isn't it? Yeah. Get some color film, and these assistants go running out the door. So, doing photographs was a collaborative thing, and after 3 or 4 hours of standing there and do this, you always get something pretty good. And we used good guys, like for Dream Police, we used Reed Miles. He did the Virginia Slims ads, this nice patina. The guys for In Color were award-winning ad guys from NYC and stuff like that. So, yeah, we used good guys, and we learned right off the bat. They kind of give you advice. Lick your lips so your chin relaxes. Keep your chin down. Do this, do that. After 2 or 3 of those sessions, you start to start to do this stuff. You start to figure this stuff out.
Right.
So, yeah, we ended up with some pretty good stuff. Plus, Rick makes the best faces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tom and Robin, it seems like if you took a picture of those guys, every picture of them always looked good.
Yeah.
They always look good. They were very picky about what got put out. I'd look at them and go, yeah, whatever you want to do is fine. I can live with this stuff, as long as I don't have too many chins or something, So they were always fine with me. It was probably Tom and Robin who were the pickiest. So yeah, if you like our photography, it's probably those two guys and whoever the label was picking to shoot us.
Yeah, it just looked like you guys were always having a blast. And I was wondering, when you were doing that, were you really having fun?
Well, it was an afternoon off, from not having to go play or go to a radio station. So, and it usually wasn't a gig day. So, yeah, they were fun because it was a day off, And
yeah.
The only part that wouldn't be fun is getting there at 6 in the morning or something,
right.
Which you had to do for videos and some photo shoots.
Right.
You kind of because you got to get up at 3 then, so you look awake,
Right.
It was a chore sometime, but.
Yeah. Well, it looked like you guys were having a blast.
Well, I got the best pile of photos at home, the scrapbook.
I
That's what you end up with. It's like I've got so many good photos of me. And what do I do with them? I've seen me before, so yeah.
So, do those photos that your fans, the audience, thinks that, or you guys are having such a great time, was that reflective of behind the scenes, the experience you were having?
Often not. It's usually the guy, I'll laugh in that photo or smile in that photo or something like that. And there was a few photo shoots that had showed up, someone would get the photos and they go, boy, you guys really look pissed off in this. And it'd be like, yeah, we were. We were standing there for 4 hours and that pinhead didn't know what he was doing, or something like that.
Yeah.
It was cold in there or something, that kind of stuff. But we took pretty good pictures. We had good guys to start with in Rockford. We used an industrial photographer for band photos, like in '75 and stuff. A guy that took pictures of buildings. We thought he'll know how to frame everything real good.
Right.
We look like we look, so we got to get ourselves looking right in this picture. Yeah.
Was it a challenge to keep the band together for all those years?
Yeah, it was. It was our first manager. He kind of ran the roost by divide and conquer, and the world's going to fall apart if we don't do this next batch of gigs. We're all going to be poor. We always got that kind of crap. We had a record label crawling up our ass all the time, telling us what to do and this kind of stuff. So, yeah, you look back on it, a lot of it is there was a lot of bullshit going on and stuff like that. And if times got tight, we'd often turn inward, and it was the 4 of us against the world type of thing. We used to sit in the bus completely toasty, after doing 10 in a row or something like that, and sit there and go, yeah, we're the minstrels of the new millennium. Here we are bringing happiness and civilization to the hinterlands. You know, here we are in buttfuck Iowa, where they haven't heard anything new in 20 years, and we're trying to bring them something new. You know, so yeah, you know, there was a bit of bonding going on with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know, you guys just grew up together, and you were together so long. I probably spent more time together as a band than you did with your family. You know,
Oh, for sure.
so-
We spent a lot of time together, and the families didn't with our families. Yeah, you know, and but, you know, I saw Rick at the Yardbirds gig at the Roller Palace when I was 13, and the Stones gig when I was 14, and you know, me and Robin, I was in a band with him when he was still in high school, and Rick and Tom were in a band when they were in high school. And my band beat Rick's band when we were in high school, so we knew each other way before Cheap Trick too.
Right.
So we had a lot of, we went way back together. We had a lot of points of reference. So it was like, you know, if we're working on a tune, you know, we should do this more like that, and we'd all know what we're talking about. We didn't have to sit and explain things to each other. There was a lot of unspoken communication. We had a lot of musical connections prior to the band and stuff. So all that makes for a good band.
So how does it make you feel that the relationship's just not the same anymore? You guys are not even speaking, I guess.
Well, we don't really have much to say to each other. You know, we're still in business together and stuff like that. So, you know, we do have contact a lot of times through intermediaries. But, you know someone for 50 years, there's ups or downs. And if you look back on, you know, how do bands end? Well, money, women, drugs, the friendship ends. You know, we see a lot of bands on the road who have separate dressing rooms and guys that don't speak to each other. So you see how these things go. So you know, you accept it. I mean, this is how things go. You know, it's not the end of the world. That kind of stuff.
Do you ever see you guys being friends again?
I don't really see us being friends again. We're always friendly. You know, if some promoter came along and went, I'll give you guys this bucket of money to go do this, as the 4 original guys from Cheap Trick, I could see that happening again, because all 4 of us would go, there's a bucket of money someone wants to give us, or something like that.
We're friends.
You know, we'll be friendly enough to take that bucket of money home
Right.
with us. And, you know, but I don't anticipate that happening. I don't really think I'll ever probably do a gig with Cheap Trick again, but I didn't think that last year at this time either, and then I did a gig with Cheap Trick this year, even if it was only 4 songs. You know,
Right.
so there you go.
Right.
You know. I mean,
You never know.
when Tom left the band, we weren't exactly, the 3 of us and him weren't exactly kissing each other goodbye, and 7 years later, there we were riding around on a bus together, you know,
Right.
playing dumps and stuff. So yeah,
Right.
you know, anything can happen.
Right. Driving to Mary's place yesterday, we were driving down Spring Creek and saw Rick Nielsen's Hall of Fame sign.
Rick Nielsen Parkway, or whatever they call it.
Yeah. So
You missed mine by
Where-
about a half a block.
where is yours?
It's on Parkview Avenue, which intersects Spring Creek down by the Rock River. And
Okay.
It's Bun E Carlos Avenue. They had these big banners up coming into town. This town protected by the Dream Police, and there we all are, like in our Dream Police outfits. And the state of Illinois came in and went, too many signs in this street. We can't have this crap up here, and they took them down. And that didn't go over too good, you know, in town here. But yeah,
I was a young policeman, and Dream Police came out. And let me tell you, every cop loved that album.
oh yeah.
I mean, you know, you guys, from the photo on the cover, the back cover, the music, I mean, that was our album.
I think every policeman we met since about 1979 liked that record, and I used to have like 50 hats at home. You know, I still got stuff sitting around at home. You know, I walk in, this morning I went down to the basement to check some other DEA, Gainesville, You know, I got cop hats, cop shirts,
Oh, yeah.
badges, tons of stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
We'd always invite a couple up if they wanted to come up on Dream Police and sing some backup. And one night in Madison, we had one come up on his motorcycle, you know, and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah. You know.
I would have traded you my badge off my uniform for one of your Dream Police badges back then. I mean, it was, you know. That was the coolest.
Oh, those Dream Police badges. We had some on merch for about 6 months, and then they went away. I don't even have one anymore. But
Really?
you know,
They were cool.
That Dream Police stuff is cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was a great concept. Whoever came up with that.
Well, Rick had the song "The Dream Police" for years. There was a band in Sweden called the Dream Police he'd heard about in the late '60s, and we never found any recordings. I'm not even sure if they had any recordings, but he was always like, "That's a great title for a song." And then he wrote the song a couple years. He wrote it in '75 or '6, and then it morphed. And then this got added, this got taken out. We cut it for the first record, but with a different verse and a different middle. And it sat back down again. Then around '78, at one of our rare rehearsals, we revived it again, and Rick reassembled it and turned it into what it was. It's actually from 2 songs we did.
Wow. I've got a Cheap Trick. It's not a concert tee, but I've had it for years. And it's that logo, you know.
The 6 lines.
Yeah. Who came up with that?
Well, the Cheap Trick logo in '75, we had this like a neon sign, and it looked real crappy. And this guy came to a gig in Milwaukee. Christopher Crow. We have a winner.
Yeah.
Christopher Crow came to this gig in Milwaukee, and he goes, "My dad's got an ad agency. I do stuff." He goes, "I got an idea for a logo for you guys." And he brought the logo, and he goes, "I get these 6 lines here, 2 and 2 and 2." He goes, "You know, you can use one of them or 2 or all of them together. It'll look kind of neat." And we immediately used all of them together.
Oh, wow.
And
okay, cool.
he later went on, he produced the Twilight Zone TV series in the early '90s and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, he's a producer out in LA and all that kind of stuff. So
Wow.
he was smart from the get-go.
I guess so.
Of course, he made us a good logo. We really like it.
Oh, yeah. I really never noticed in concerts in the past, but as I watched you play last night, you were smiling. You were just, I can tell you were genuinely having a great time playing. You really enjoy it, don't you?
Oh, it was a lot of fun last night. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and smiling looks good on stage. You know, I've been plenty of gigs where I don't. You know, like I got enough to do up here. But yeah, it's part of just being on stage with Cheap Trick for 40 years or whatever. You know, try and sit up straight most of the time, and try and look like you're glad people paid money to come and see you play. You know, that kind of thing. You know?
Right. So is it more of an act, or are you genuinely feeling?
I'm having a pretty good time.
Yeah.
I'm not often smiling if I'm pissed or someone just hit me in the head with something, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
You and Rick were always 2 of my favorite members of Cheap Trick. It was because I think of your such a contrast between you guys and Robin and Tom. You know, they were the long-haired, good-looking guys up front. You know, shirts unbuttoned. Rick had the, the bow ties, the checkered clothes, the crazy custom guitars.
The Bowery Boys Poindexter look.
Yeah, absolutely. And then here you were, very conservative, black skinny tie, suit, white shirt, the round glasses, short hair, even smoking a cigarette. Did you develop that concept on your own?
Oh, yeah. Well, in about 1975, when things were starting to look up, Robin had been in the band 6 months. We were starting to write songs, and the songs are good. It was kind of like we should concentrate maybe a little more on looking like a band, not like the people out in the audience. We should look like we're on stage. So yeah, I got my hair cut. I was still wearing T-shirts and jeans. I needed some stage clothes, so I went to Salvation Army and I bought a suit for like $4, and they had these white shirts that were 100% cotton button-down collars. They were 25 cents a piece. They had racks of them, so I bought a huge rack of those. Rick started getting these goofy sweaters and stuff, and so yeah, the image is ours. It's the way we all looked, and we just kind of like made it apparent that way. We're going to look like this on stage, of course. And then there's this hippie long-haired musician discrimination probably too. People see me and Rick and go, well, these guys must be good because they sure don't look any good, so they must be decent players.
Yeah.
That's why they're in the band or something, or something like that. I don't know, but whatever the reason. But yeah, when we were first going to get signed, I remember there was some guff from the label about a couple guys thought, yeah, they kind of look like a comedy act, they don't look like a rock band. And this name Cheap Trick, that's the worst name they'd ever heard. We heard that a bunch of times. We called ourselves Cheap Trick. It's just like, what a terrible name. Stuff like Kim Fowley told us it was a terrible name. I should wear gold lame suits, you know, this and that. We'd get this advice from people in the business, you know, and we'd say thank you very much, and just carry on with what we were doing.
Right,
you know.
and you got to do that.
So we stuck by our image, good or bad. That was us, and so we weren't going to change it because some clown at a label thought we should change it. You know, so yeah, the record companies didn't have much cred with us when it came to fashion or music advice. They were business people.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't really like what they had to say, good or bad. We pretty much tried to disregard it.
Did it your way.
Well, as much as you could. I mean, we had songs like the Ballad of Richard Speck. They wouldn't call it that. They had to call it the Ballad of TV Violence, because some victim of Specs will sue and you'll lose your royalties, and we'll have to spend money on a lawyer for you guys, God forbid. You know, and stuff like that. The heavy stuff we had, they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to know about it. They only wanted pop fluff. So we had to try and sneak that stuff. They didn't want to hear a stringed instrument on the record. When the color came out, we said we'd like to have a string section on the next record, and some guy from the label took us aside after the interview and goes, "We didn't hire you guys to have an orchestra with you. We hired you guys to be a rock band. Don't get any big ideas." So we made sure the next record we had strings on Surrender and on Heaven Tonight and Alvitas, anything we could get a guy to come and saw something on. We got him in the studio just because the label told us they didn't think that was a good idea. We were just like, fuck those guys, you know. So yeah, there was a bit of that going on too, you know.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, you had absolutely the coolest look.
Cool.
Really, I mean, it was.
Luckily.
Well, you know, and I've always been a fan of the round shades, and I decided to create my own sunglasses line. They're called Badass Shades, and I want to give you a pair. I know you wear a prescription, but I'm going to give you a pair in a minute, and they're round.
You know, I had these nerd glasses before Cheap Trick in the band we were in, and Sick Man of Europe, and I went to this place in Philly. This guy had just opened these two guys had opened this store, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to do this discount thing. We're going to do a chain, and we're going to get glasses for people. It don't cost a lot of money." And it was called Four Eyes. And 5 years later, they had like 90 places on the East Coast and stuff like that. But the two original guys were a couple Grateful Dead guys from Philadelphia that owned this little place like on 15th. And I went over there, I remember, got frames and glasses for like $9.
Wow.
It was just like, John Lennon glasses, finally.
Yeah.
You know, something I can't get in Rockford.
Yeah.
So that's why I liked them. They were John Lennon glasses.
Oh, absolutely. I want to just make a comment that I know that the drummer's oftentimes referred to as the heart of the band because you keep the beat, right? You were thinking something. What were you thinking when I said that?
The heartache of the band.
The heartache. No, the heart, and I think that makes a lot of sense because you do keep the time, you do keep the beat, and last night I saw a little bit different heart in that, you know, it was amazing to me that with everything going on last night in preparation for playing, you know, you take the time to visit with people, to sign autographs, to take photos, and that's really rare to see someone that does that so much, especially on a night that you're playing. And so you've got a big heart.
You know, if you're in some arena and you want to stand around and do that, you got four people waiting on you. There's a car out back with a driver that wants to go home.
Right.
Everybody else wants to go to the hotel or something, you know. So I used to not do that on the road very much. I was always kind of like, let's get out of here, sneak into the car and just get out of here and not sign stuff or have to sit there and do this. But when we used to do bars, I remember we used to go out on the breaks all the time and do the room, you know, walk through the room and, hey, what's going on? And say hello to the hot-looking chicks, you know.
I
And people we knew and stuff like that. So, yeah, I do that when we do these gigs, and I've been a fan, trying to get someone's autograph back in the day and stuff like that. So, I kind of know how it goes for that, and I've kind of taken a circle from the way I used to do it in the arena days. It was just kind of like, and I just told people, yeah, if you want something signed, bring it down to the gig. If you want a picture, come on down to the gig. Yeah, we'll do this, and then I do it at the gig. It's easily done here, and the fans really appreciate it. They really like that.
Absolutely.
And I remember sitting there with like Pete Townsend, at the Kinetic Playground. He was fixing his amp. He was putting a speaker in his own amp, and I'm like, "Can you sign this? Can you answer some questions to me?" And he was like, "Sure, okay, yeah." And can I get a couple extra autographs? There's a couple guys outside that came with me. They're gonna kill me if I don't get them an autograph. Okay, and he signs like 3 autographs for me, and I'm thinking, this guy probably wants to kill me. But, I had these questions for him, and I snuck in the Yardbirds dressing room and asked Jeff Beck about stuff. And
oh, wow.
When I was 14, and he was a real nice guy about it and stuff. And, the sound goes through the pickup, and he explained feedback to me and stuff.
Isn't that cool?
And Jim McCarty gave me a pair of sticks, and it was just like, and, stuff like that. So, you kind of remember some of that stuff, too,
Right.
That's cool.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's cool what you do, and you have a big heart.
Well, I'm a lucky guy here, I really am. Oh, those are nice.
These are my badass shades.
I got to get some lenses put into these.
And they're stainless steel frames. I use the polycarb lens.
They sit kind of high, it looks like. Let's see.
I made the stems long,
bad.
so they don't grab at the back of your ear.
Yeah.
Bun's now got him a pair of badass shades. I want to know something that you've never told anybody else.
No one's ever asked me how I like drumming with one arm after I broke my arm.
Oh.
We had a drummer come in from Philadelphia that we knew because we needed a drummer because I broke my arm and I had surgery.
How did you break it?
I fell over after a gig walking across a room. Some roadie left a case on the floor and I tripped and I put my arm out and broke my arm in the joint, So after surgery, after a couple weeks, they took the cast off and the band was going to play and they're like, we got this guy to drum, but he's not that good. Can you drum along with him? We'll get 2 drum sets. And I'm like, so I sat up there with my arm in a sling, and played with one arm. And he played with 2 arms. And we did that for 3 sets a night.
Wow.
And stuff like that. And it's a lot of work. And you're playing lopsided, so it even feels weird and stuff like that.
Oh, I can imagine.
The band could never find another drummer that could play Hello Kitties. Basically the drummer killer in question, and I broke my arm, and we tried auditioned a couple drummers from Rockford, and they weren't quite up to snuff, and we called Frampton's guy, the guy that was with McCartney or whatever, Sewell, or one of these guys from Chicago, I forget which guy, and he was like, fuck off, never heard of you, because we just signed a record deal, we didn't have a record out. So we called this drummer in Philly we knew that hadn't played drums in 2 years, and he came out, and he was having a hard time with LO Kitties too. So yeah, get me up there and make me play it with one hand instead.
Right, right.
So yeah, I used to play drums one-handed back in the day.
Wow.
We had 1.5 drummers for 3 weeks.
Now, you're a lefty.
I'm a lefty.
Yeah.
I'm a right-handed kid, so my feet are right-footed and my hands are ambidextrous.
And you only play Ludwig?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I've endorsed them since 1980. I had an old Radio King kit, a Snarling kit before that, but I also had a Ludwig snare drum. I always use that in the studio and stuff like that, so it was the sound.
Right.
All my heroes played Ludwig. When they gave me an endorsement, I said, okay.
Yeah. You smoking on stage, how did that go?
I learned to smoke playing cards at Rock Valley Junior College. How to have a cigarette while having a handful of cards. And there was a band of Rockford called the Daiquiris. They used to smoke on stage back in the 60s, and I thought, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, if I'm on stage, I'd have a cigarette whenever I wanted. You know, I'd tell my roadie, give me a cigarette. He'd light a cigarette and hand it up to me, and I'd bounce it off a cymbal or something, you know, and the sparks would go flying or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you had it aiming here or here, then it wouldn't get in your eyes.
Wow, that was really cool.
You had to be a card player to figure that out.
Yeah, well, you had it down. I love this picture.
Oh, the old bunny mask, yeah.
Who did that?
We had a bunny mask made in 1980. Had a cigarette originally for Who the King. We'd get 10 or 15 people up to help us sing Who the King every night for the encore. So we'd have the radio station make a contest, and then we'd give them all bunny masks, and they'd all come up and sing Who the King, and jump around on stage and make fools out of themselves.
Yeah.
And
that is awesome.
And since then, there's been every few years someone gets a batch of them made. And when this band started a few years ago, people started showing up with bunny masks on and stuff, you know. And yeah, so they kind of got a life of their own, you know.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I brought a couple of cowbells, and I was wondering if you'd like teach me.
Sure, I'll give you the 30-second lesson. It takes any longer than that.
But
we both need a lesson. Okay, this end is where the volume's going to come out.
Okay.
So you got to be aware of that.
Okay.
You can do honky tonk women. You can hit it with a tip. Bam, 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 bam. Or you can shank it.
Oh wow.
Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah.
Or for an ending of a song, you can do this. You know, try and get more than one hit. You know, you can use it as percussion. Really get a big grip on it.
Oh wow. Okay.
You know, there's different things like that. There's one on the Budokan album. I got it mounted between the two tom-toms. You can hear it at the start of Ain't That a Shame. I do a little ding, 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 ding. I do a little of that, and I tap it. Or you can use it on, you know, like Speak Now or Forever Hold Your Peace, and it's just bam, 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 bam. Probably it's kind of a counter beat. Bam, 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 bam.
Yesterday feels like running away, feels like giving back time, getting lost, losing mind. I'm feeling low, and I got no place to go. Getting tired of feeling.
Tonk limit is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It does that through the first verse, and then Jimmy Miller plays it, the producer, and then the pattern changes a little bit during the verse. You can just hear him kind of going, just kind of doing, like that. Just it's a random pattern. It's, yeah. It sounds just. On the guitar pick, yeah.
Wow, it's loud though. Isn't it?
Oh, it's obnoxious.
I'm one of the few guys that ever got a lesson from Bun E. Carlson on playing the cowbell.
The only, for sure.
Hey, it's awesome. Do you have any questions for me?
Been to Mia's lately? I love that place. Their steak
Mia's?
tacos are the best.
Mia's?
Yeah, in Dallas. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that place.
Hey, this is DC, and you're watching Barside Jive, and it's been our pleasure today to have you, Bun, on the show, and we just wish you the best.
Thanks for having me, D. Beautiful thing.
Thank you, man. It's been awesome.
we saw a lot of bands putting on makeup and jumping around and using $10 million laser lights and things like that, and we thought, we can do better than that, and we don't have to spend $10 million, and we're a good band, a good musical band. We like what we do, so we have fun on stage. We like to rock and roll, and we like our audience to rock and roll.
Your staff is amazing, so I just hope everybody that gets to Rockford comes to Mary's place and spends a day or a night or a week or something.
Just to meet us.
But come when Bun E Carlos is here.
That's right.
Get a real treat.
Because Bunny's the bomb.
That's right.
Where's Bun?
He's down there.
There he is.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
When I was a younger man, I used to drum for Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and people like that, the rock and roll guys. I'd get on the tours, and they didn't like you making faces. They didn't like you doing drum rolls. They didn't like you stealing the spotlight. So I stayed back and did my job, and I like a smoke while I'm playing. You know, it's a long time getting on stage and off stage, and I'm a little more comfortable. So I sit up there and watch it all go by. I got the best seat in the house. I get to see the pretty girls up front. I don't get blasted out by these guys' amps. You know, they're 10 feet high stack amps. It all goes right by me. So I just get to sit there and watch it roll on by. It's real good.
Bye-bye.
senses. Lows that evolve into highs that pierce. Feel the rock on 98 KZEW.